Joining me now, our dear friend Vivek Ramaswamy, former presidential candidate and now a great Trump campaign surrogate. Vivek, welcome back as always. Let's just give me a quick take. You heard the riff about the jobs report. Looking under the hood, it really wasn't a very good report. You have a thought about jobs in America today?
Well, the reality is they fluff up the jobs numbers by shifting more of those jobs to the government sector. And so the question is what your actual goals are, Larry. On one hand, their goal could be economic growth, and if so, they're failing miserably. But that's not actually their goal. Their goal is an expansion of the government's control of the economy. So it makes sense that though they actually prop up the jobs numbers, more of those jobs are driven by the government, you get exactly what you're shooting to achieve. So that's the net summary there. But as it pertains to the economy overall, there's some basic facts for the last 4 years that voters know in their hearts, but we'll just say it to verbalize it to make it clear. Prices have gone up, interest rates and mortgage rates have gone up, but wages have not kept up pace. And that's why Americans reject the Bidenomics fallacy. They understand how they've been affected. And you know what? I think economic growth can be a unifying agenda. The Democrats have rejected it. I think it's our time as Republicans to once again unapologetically embrace that as our message. And I think we'll unite a lot of Americans, regardless of partisan affiliation, if we do. You know,
100%, Vivek. Prosperity is always a tremendous unifier across all lines, ethnic lines, political lines. Vivek, hang on a second. Here's Mr. Trump in Phoenix on Thursday talking a little bit about economy and taxes. Take a listen, please.
We had the greatest economy in history during that short period of time. We had the greatest in history, the greatest jobs, greatest tax cuts, gave you the biggest tax cuts in history, biggest regulation cuts. Everything was good. But I'm telling you that this election coming up on November 5th, 2024, is going to go down as the most important day, because if we don't win, it's all of us, it's millions of people. If we don't win, this country is finished. I really believe that.
I mean, Vivek, you know, I would say he's on message. In other words, the point you just made about the unifying effects of economic growth, a point that I have worked on for my entire career, I think Mr. Trump is very much on message for this point. What do you think?
I agree with you. Success is the ultimate unifier. Biden ran on the campaign of national unity. He has abysmally failed, or we wouldn't be where we are. We are in a 1776, dare I say, Larry, even close to 1776 or 1860 type of moment in this country. It's sad to say it, but the question on the table is, are we actually one nation today or not? I believe we are. But the way we're going to remind Americans of that is actually through our own success, through reviving that sense of American exceptionalism, both through the economy and the revival of economic mobility and the American dream in this country. And I think that's why Donald Trump's message and the America First message is resonating so broadly, not just amongst traditional Republicans, but from the Bronx to the south side of Chicago to non-traditional audiences that we're seeing across this country now coming over to our side. It's because they understand they want a better life for their family and for their children. That goes beyond traditional partisan politics. And I do think Trump is doing a great job of staying, as you put it, on message. But the point is, it's actually on message for what's true in this country. We are one nation, but we're also skating on thin ice. And the guy who ran on national unity but failed, that's Joe Biden. Fire the guy who's failed and put back the guy in the office who actually got the job done for 4 years. That makes this one of the most unique elections in American history. It's a once-in-a-century opportunity where you get to compare as a voter the records of two people who have been president back to back. It was Grover Cleveland the last time we had that opportunity. Let's seize it this time and put back in office the guy who actually got it right from 2016 to 2020.
Wow. Vivek, related matter, slightly different but related matter. We just had a report from our Jonathan Hunt on the West Coast in Los Angeles, and we are tracking this. Bill Malugin is tracking this. Fox's great reporters. Illegals continue to come in. Biden has this new executive order with a lot of bells and whistles, but they're still coming in, 2,500 a day. We're running 3,800 illegally yesterday, 3,800. Nothing is happening. The Border Patrol is still letting them come through and releasing them into the interior of the country. We still have catch and release, Vivek. We do not have catch and deport. I don't get it. What is this Biden executive order? What is it doing, if anything?
It's doing one thing precisely, Larry, and that is providing a campaign talking point for Joe Biden. That's it. He had 4 years to fix the border. He failed abysmally, not because they didn't know how, but because they actually didn't want to achieve the objective in the first place. Every one of those illegal migrants, they see that as the opportunity to convert a long-run Democratic voter. So they haven't had the incentive to control it. Now their incentive structure has shifted to create the appearance, I would argue the illusion of actually doing something about it. That's exactly what's going on. You want to fix this border crisis, fix the incentive crisis at the heart of it. End aid to any Central American country that isn't fixing that border crisis, move our own military to the southern border, use aquatic barriers in the Rio Grande, end birthright citizenship for the kids of illegals in this country, and tell everybody clearly that if you are in this country illegally, you will be returned to your country of origin. That it is logical, not racist or xenophobic, but that it is pure logic that says if we've had the largest influx of illegal migrants in American history, then we will require the largest mass deportation in American history. And that, you know what, if you want to come to this country the right way through the front door and are going to make contributions to this country and actually love the values of the United States of America, then yes, you do deserve a legal system to come to this country the right way. We deserve that, actually. It's about American citizens and our best interest. But that's a separate issue from sealing the border, which is what Biden has failed to do. And everything else he's claiming to do now is a smokescreen to try to inch past the finish line in this election.
You know what else we got to do? We got to deport the criminals. We got to, this Venezuelan kid who was part of a big Venezuelan gang who shot 2 cops here in New York and Queens earlier in the week. I'm trying to look in my notes for the name of the gang. I can't quite find it. But these gangs should all be deported, and people who are I mean, I know you're a criminal when you cross illegally, but you've got people here with criminal records who are killing people, young women, for example, shooting cops. I mean, as part of any reform, I know your heart is there. I know your head is there. We have got to deport these criminals.
Absolutely. And this is a stunning fact, Larry. There are over 1 million people in this country now who have had a final order of removal. That means they've gone through the entire appeals process, and the judicial system in this country offers them no more appeal after years. There's 1 million of them still in this country now. So the reality is the executive branch, including the Department of Homeland Security and other parts of the U.S. government, have the power to do this, to use different parts of the law to co-opt local law enforcement, 287G, to be able to use other parts of the federal code, to actually use the National Guard and other resources to deport those who are here illegally and criminal. We're failing to do it now, but that is a fixable problem. But you want to know the best border policy of all at this point? It isn't passing some new law through Congress. It is to elect Donald Trump as the next president of the United States. And if we get that done and the right people are staffed to get this done, this border crisis is going to be behind us. That's the bottom line.
Vivek, Tren de Aragua. Tren de Aragua. They are the gang from Venezuela. They have a lot of members here. They all ought to be deported. We ought to be deported. You're exactly right. 287G would give the Border Patrol the authority to go to the local cops, get them, break through the sanctuary city thing, and send them the heck out of this country because they are criminals, killing people, spreading drugs and whatnot. Last one, Vivek. It's so lovely to talk to you as always. Last one. I think just today, the EPA is putting out now miles per gallon standard of 65 miles per gallon, all right, which in effect would ban gasoline-powered cars, and 80% of Americans are opposed to this. I don't know what poll you can look at. 70, 80% Americans want consumer choice, want to buy a gasoline car. They're not persuaded about EVs. And I think just today, the EPA put out 65 miles a gallon, which is, of course, unapproachable if you have a gas-powered car. Here they go. The pointy-headed bureaucrats from the best colleges in the country are just wreaking havoc on ordinary working folks. Vivek, what do you make of that one?
Well, this is the deep state at its finest, Larry. The people we elect to run the government, they're not the ones actually running the government. The EPA was never elected by the people of this country. None of the bureaucrats there were. So how do you square that circle? Here's the answer. 80% of Americans don't want it, and they elect representatives to Congress who they would vote out if they voted for that policy. That's exactly why the EPA is getting done through the back door what the government could not get done through the front door through the constitutional lawmaking process. That is illegal. The Supreme Court already slapped the EPA on the wrist with West Virginia versus EPA in 2022. That's held a lot of their regulations for the coal industry unconstitutional. I think these regulations are unconstitutional, too. And the right answer to this deep state cannot just be incremental reform. You got to shut large swaths of the federal government down, send many of these bureaucrats home packing, and rescind all of these unconstitutional federal regulations. That, too, is one of the ways that we're going to grow this economy and unite this country. And that's the problem of the deep state in a nutshell. It's not some theoretical issue. It's now affecting the lives of everyday Americans, and we are done with it.
Yeah, spot on. Vivek Ramaswamy, one of these days I want to talk to you for the entire hour of the show. Get you on set. You'll come here. We'll talk to the entire hour of the show. You're terrific for giving us your time on a Friday. Thank you very much for your wisdom. We'll talk soon.